Y'all, we back for the Rooted in Greatness series, y'all. I'm so excited about our guest today. We're going to jump right into this, man, and get it started. You know, we're doing this Rooted in Greatness series this year because we want to highlight how faith merges with performance psychology. So, you know, we've been talking to neuropsychologists, we've been talking to sports psychologists, but we also been talking to former athletes, current athletes, because we really want to dive into the mindset that goes with faith and sports. We always try to treat faith like it's a byproduct or, as I say, a side piece to the game. But the truth of the matter is we know that we were all made in his image and likeness. So as we step into this world of NIL and all the new things that are happening, I'm so excited that we're going to be launching this year for the first time our name, image, and likeness conference in his name, image, and likeness conference this year. And without further ado, man, I want to introduce the guest today, man. I got Freddie Stevenson. Y'all seen him from Trials to Triumph. He's in the building. All you Knowles fan, don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. Y'all know we got a legend in the building, but introduce yourself, Freddie, man. So grateful for you to be with us here today at Xposure Talks.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me for sure. Of course, like you said, played at Florida State from 2013 to 2016 was on the last national championship team. Went on to play in the NFL for the Bears. Went on to write a best-selling book about my life. Released a documentary that's now streaming worldwide. Now I get to share my story across the world.
That's what's up, man. So you said you was on that last national championship team. There's some familiar faces on that team, and one of them just happened to be from the area that I'm from in Alabama. You probably know who I'm talking about, Mr. Jameis Winston.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. He's from I'm from Jasper, Alabama, so I know Jameis is from Bessemer. He's from right down the street from me, so I know that's a big year, man. Hey, you guys had a big, amazing, like, shock the world year. Tell me this, Freddie. I know Jameis, man, and I know his faith is a big part of not just then, but even in how he leads now. But you personally yourself, tell me about your journey and how your faith kind of went through your sports career with you all the way back to when you started. Tell me your journey into sports.
Definitely. So I started playing ball, I say like when I was 5 or 6 years old. At the time, my father, he got out of prison. He put me into sports. Big man of faith. He said God showed him in the vision that I was going to play in the NFL and be able to preach across the world. So he put a football in my hands, immediately, kind of mentored me throughout the process. But for me, honestly, man, grew up in the church. My father, changed his life around, became a pastor and things of that nature. But kind of how we said off the camera, I went to church, but church wasn't in me. And a lot of the things that, I lived out were ultimately just a testament of my father. I never truly believed it, but it's like, okay, and I never truly had a relationship with God. And I was more in relationship with the results of, what could come out of it. So if I follow this path that my father has said that's been written out for me, then I'll get all of these things. But I never really had a relationship with God, and that was kind of my whole journey into after I started playing the game.
Listen, man, just hearing you say, like, I never had that deep relationship with the Lord. I know that so well, kind of growing up. My grandparents lived like 10 steps from the church. So I was one of those families that we played at the church. We had to clean the church, but I hated the church. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I hated to be at it. Like, I didn't even want to go. But I do remember, like, when I started to transition, because I grew up in a very toxic family environment. Generational trauma was a real thing in my family. And I had family who were in church. My whole family, most of them were in church. So I couldn't kind of wrap my head around, was church for real or was it not? Because when I was looking at the adults in my family, like, they was going to church every Sunday, but outside of the church house, they was doing all kind of stuff. My family was buck wild. And so sports became like almost like an escape. And I'll be real honest, it became an escape. For you, I heard you say, your dad kind of turned his life and transformed his life. Um, and he started to embed that into you. For you, were you resistant to that? Like, the church, and I know we went, but were you pushing back against it? Didn't want to go that route? Tell me about that for you.
Yes, to be honest, yeah, for most of my life, yes, because just the environment that we came up in, see my father, doing the things that he did, he started off the reason he went to prison because he was doing a lot of things in the streets. He was known to kind of a drug kingpin when I was a child. But then also my mother's side of the family, we see a lot of the same. So during the time of my father in prison, struggling, I was struggling to make ends meet. She would never take my family members, she would never take a leave. So she found herself working 2 to 3 jobs just we were homeless place to place. A lot of me was like, how does God exist dealing with all this? Even when my father was preaching, he got out of prison, it's hard for me to see it. Not only that, kind of what you talked about, just going into church and I see more evil in the church than I saw on the block.
Right, right.
So for me, that was kind of that kind of made it hard for me to buy into it.
And listen, it's interesting hearing you say that because I think a lot of times we forget like the same way that we see that. Many times we see that in our households, many times we see that in church, but it's also the same when you look at your coaches and stuff too. Like it's hard to buy into people who you feel like are not living kind of the lifestyle and the expectation. So going into, I don't know about you, but transitioning and going into sports, my dad was a huge I came from a sports family and it was really driving home the sports. Sports became like even part of my punishment. Like going to I played baseball, I did football, did track, and I remember those days of it being a part of my discipline. You got to run more, you got to do this more, you got to do that more. And I remember trying to figure out in my head like, man, like you wilding and you and you on my back. Like you on my back about my behavior, or I get into a fight in school. I get into a fight, and then I'll be like, "But Dad, you the one told me like if somebody picks on me to deal with them." And
Mhm.
so I'm dealing with them, but I'm getting in trouble at home for dealing with them. And so it was kind of confusing a lot of times, man. And now by this time, I had so much pent up anger in me because of a lot of the confusion that was around me. How did you and what happened? What's the pivotal moment for you that happened that made you get serious about your own faith? Was that while you were playing sports? Or was that after sports was over? What shifted you and made you really start saying, "Man, I wanna get serious about God?"
Yeah, so I would say after I was done playing the game, that's when things shifted for me ultimately. All of those things I told you that my father said God had for me, my relationship with God was all based on results. It was a transactional relationship. So I would be the guy that like God is good all the time, but God is good only when things are going well for me. Actually building a relationship behind the scenes. I mean, I read my Bible, but if things go well, God is good. And when my playing career ended, I blame God. Turned my back on question his existence. And then I went on a dark path. Out of the things that I had avoided my whole entire life, I went through that. So whether it was in the streets, whatever, and almost lost my life because of it, almost lost my freedom. I remember being in my home, questioning God. I just dropped down to my hey, said, "God, if you're real, you get me out of this, I glorify you for my life." Then it's a situation that, I did everything that they said I did. I was under a heavy it's like the black, the naturalized that just wipes away all memory of everybody. Just everything just clear, and I knew it was nothing but God, 'cause it's just like everything old stuff, and I was able to, life from that point. So when you see everything today be glorifying God for everything that I do and not ashamed of it, it's because of those moments God showed me and the discovered that He was real. I came back to my first. I was always one of the guys I overlooked. I always had to outweigh everybody, but I think to myself, just imagine what if you put God first, you allow God to open you up. So I believe, I tell people this all the time. I've never been in a situation in the field like something aren't good enough. That was not my situation. I believe God set that for me so that I can open my eyes and know that I was nothing without God in my life. So now in this phase of my life, things coming my way that I've never wanted. I'm not qualified for paper. Or I'm the introverted guy that boys used to crack rooms and they would think I was about to cry. I'm an introverted guy who took me to networking space. I could go sit in the back corner and just be hoping, "Alright, Imma slide up to that 50 and we'll talk." Then he's like, connection. So I know ultimately now it's not me, it's God drawing me
Mm.
because the opportunity coming my way, I never wanted it. And if God gave me the green light now, I would go sit behind the scenes now. But God elevated me and gave me strength of my weakness. And it's just ultimately now my perspective changing.
There's a scripture in the Bible that says the gifts and callings of God are without repentance, meaning that you can try all you want. I've tried. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was the guy in church serving and doing everything, and I decided, man, I ain't doing this. I'm gonna go do my own thing. God, this is crazy. Nah, don't work that way. One of the things I love about God is, and I experienced this. I'll never forget being in high school and deciding I was gonna quit. I got mad about some politics and football, and I was like, I'm tired of having to share my starting position with people, and they won't let me just be the out route starter. I told my mom, I'm quitting, I'm quitting. And I was in my room. I'll never forget the day. My godfather, he was 6'4", about 325. He used to play for the Steelers. And he was my offensive line coach on the team. And I was playing on defense, but he was my godfather. That big joke, all I remember is my bedroom door swinging open, and that joker grabbed me up out of that bed, threw me on the floor, put his foot in my chest, and said, "If you gonna quit, you look me in the face like a man and tell me you quit. You don't send no message to me." Say, "Yo, why you in my room?
That's just crazy.
Why you in my room?" But he saved my life, man, because the truth of the matter was is that I was about to quit on not football, I was quitting on me, and I was quitting on the support that I needed, that environment that I need. I was quitting on trying to quit on the assignment God had on my life because it wasn't just about football. I think so many times we look at athletics, and I'll tell you, Freddie, the reason I'm full steam ahead now with how I'm doing this is because God gave me something very specific at the end of last year when I God pivoted my ministry. I knew that I was going to pastor and have a church building and be pastoring the church, and God said, "No, no, that's not what you're doing." And I was like, "What you mean? This is what I've been preparing for." He said, "No, you're going into sports, and I need you to prepare." Athletes for the longest have been told that they're training to play at the highest level. And he was like, "And the highest level is me." And he was like, they're my army. That's my army. They've been prepared. They've been getting stronger. They've been getting the discipline because that's my army. And I need you to go and remind them that they're my army. Those gifts and the calling that I have on their life, it ain't just about the game. No, it's in the last days. I'm gonna need an army, and they're fit for battle. And I said, "Okay, God, all right, don't make sense to me, but I'll go." And so in this going, Freddie, I think about what you just said about that your dad spoke something over you a long time ago that, yeah, you went through sports. And I see so many guys who are going through sport and they encounter difficulty and they think that the difficulty is the end. But I'm reminded from people like you and my best friend who's similar situation, he ended up injured. He came out the same year Reggie Bush did. He was like number 10 in the nation in rushing. He played with Lance Moore and Bruce Skrzykowski, but he ends up not getting drafted. And he went into a real dark place for himself. But I reminded him, I said, "Bro, I know we played football, but you also had a gift to sing. And what if the Lord, I know that's what you wanted, but what if the Lord wanted to use that?" And he goes back out, gets into the studio with his dad, and then produces an album and traveled the globe singing at ministry now. And now he ministers in churches and leading worship all across the nation because God has a plan. Freddie, talk to me. Your hat in your shirt says trials to triumph. Tell me a little bit more about kind of for you. I know you got a podcast, amazing podcast yourself, but tell me what that trials to triumph means to you.
There's a quote from the documentary that my mother said. She said, when you have overcome every obstacle that was sent for your success. And
Mm.
um another mantra that I struggle to this day, make who I am today. So trials and triumphs is just I truly believe, that God puts us through different tests and challenges to show our purpose. And one of my favorite movies is Karate Kid.
Okay.
The Karate Kid. So you remember when in the Karate Kid when Daniel's son was getting beat up and then he found out that Mr. Miyagi could actually fight. He goes to him for training. but instead he's more with, the, and standing the force on the planes, wax on, wax off, and he's thinking that God was just using him to do some chores around, some stuff that he don't want. So one day he challenged me, like, "Yeah, what's up? Like, karate, can I cheat?" So Mr. Miyagi calls out all, then he starts to attack, and he's blocking all those things, but it's catching Daniel flying off guard because he's like, I practiced karate all this time. How am I doing this stuff?" But what's ultimately happening is he's learning the fundamentals of karate without knowing it because, oftentimes we know what's going on or we know how that go, but all right, I'm good. I'm good. Or, our instincts are meant to mess it up, we'll mess it up without knowing. And that's how God works.
Come on.
Certain things that happen in our life that are meant to strengthen us, shape us, prepare us. And if we knew how God was going to work it out every single time, a lot of us would just sit on the couch. Oh, we'll sabotage it. We'll self-sabotage. So God can't show us everything. And that's what trial and triumph is. That trial. You wouldn't have been able to reach that trial if it wasn't for that trial. Think about what you are now today in your life. You know a moment in the past when you wanted to quit or you wanted to give up, and you thought about God, you have anything for you questioned everything, but you continue to push through, trusted God. If you didn't continue to push through, you would never reach that trial. So those trials, if they didn't happen, we wouldn't be the people that we are today.
Man, listen, Freddie, what you're talking about right now is one of the things I teach all my athletes when I work with my athletes is that we've been taught the wrong definition of failure.
Mm,
And we've been given a defining word without defining and looking at the word. Because if you look at the word failure, it starts with the word fail, but then the last four letters is Lure, lure. And I always tell people we miss that,
mm,
that fail has a lure. What is the lure? We know that a lure is something that pulls you into a direction. So I said failure can either lure you towards where you don't want to be or lure you to where you're supposed to be, what God has ordained for you. And what we have to look and determine, we say we don't fail, we learn.
mhm.
That's exactly it. That the Bible says that God uses the foolish things to confound the wise. He says that he'll take all the bad stuff and work it for your good. I'm going to work it for your good. So to work something, we know what to go to work mean, right?
Yep.
So if I'm going to take it, I'm going to work it for your good, Freddie. Yeah, you had this hardship. Yeah. Yeah, you got knocked down. No, you're not at the top of the depth chart. Yeah, you quit. Yeah, they didn't pick you. Yeah, you got an injury. Yeah, they stabbed you in the back. Yeah, it didn't work out. It don't look like you wanted to look like. Yeah, you made a stupid decision. But he said, I'm going to use all that, right? Because I'm God, right? And I tell people if we lose sight of and this is to me the reason why when I say rooted in greatness, I'm talking about being rooted in Christ. I'm talking about being rooted in Christ. Freddie, when was a time where you literally had to root yourself and reach down into them roots that you have in Christ and say, like you said, I fell to my knees and said, Lord, help me. When
Mm.
was another time when you were on the field and you had to reach into those roots?
I say the moment this is still why my faith is shaky and, ultimately, it's all over the place. And I told you at the time where it was a transactional relationship,
Hmm.
but it was another low moment for me. I remember my junior year of high school, I don't have any offers from any colleges,
Hmm.
despite being one of the top players and, in my area. I'm playing it's the second to last game of the season. We're getting blown out. It's a game to make it to the playoffs. We're getting blown out. So all the players on my team started quitting. And I
Wow.
played linebacker. I was one of the top linebackers in the country my senior year. But all our running backs stopped going into the game. I got upset. I'm a person. I'm like, man, I'm a prideful person. I'm competitive, and it's just a standard that I live by. And man, we're gonna finish this game out the right way. I'm not gonna quit on this team. And so I went on the offensive side of the ball, like, coach, give me the ball. They don't want to run the ball, give me the ball. And I'm the best player on the team. It's crazy for me to even do this on the stuff in the game. I break the 20 yards on the first run. Then the second run, it's like everybody just I don't know if you ever seen the longest yard. Um,
Oh,
quarterback, yeah, all through the net and everything out in the backfield. It seemed like that. Everybody, and there was a guy that my leg immediately, and I'm trying to snatch my leg out, keep running, then another person falls on it, and then I just feel the spot. So I knew immediately that my leg was broke. but I didn't know how bad it was. The doctor comes over to my leg, he starts taking the tape off, he thinks and at the time, but then he sees the bones put back in. Was rushed to the hospital. So they do some X-ray on my leg, find out that I broke my fibula, fractured bones in my and I lost all the cartilage in my ankle. So at this time, only focused on my mind was so I had made a promise to my mother when we were younger. The office reminded me at the time was she had teach regular with me and my siblings because she was at a dollar tuck me. I remember all I promised to football, take care of my family. Once I found out that I could. And this moment, only thing in my mind was that part. So I asked the doctors, like, will I be able to play again? All of that is cool, but will I be able to play again? And I remember one of the doctors coming in and he said, man, you just have to focus on walking. You probably never play football again.
Wow.
And I just remember snapping. I like, you don't know, you're wrong. A lot of people told me up to this point what I can and can't do. You're wrong, and I'm a prove you wrong. But then over the course of the rehabilitation process, I realized that that may possibly become a reality because here I am 3 to 4 months later, and I can't walk. I'm being homeschooled because I can't get up and go to school. I had to take all my classes at home, or some of the teachers would come from school and drop off the work to me. And I'm like, man, it's looking rough. Like,
Hmm.
they never play again. And I don't have any college offers. A lot of schools are scared off. And I remember my pops going in and he talked to me. He's like, you better talk. That God, that promise that God has on your life. One thing about God is, has a promise on your life, it has to come to pass.
Come on
So
now.
God showed you, He showed us that you're gonna play in the NFL and preach, and you haven't touched the NFL yet. So you better talk to that leg. And you better tell that leg that God is not done with that leg. So I just
Come
remember
on.
in my bed, I was crying out tears because it had seeped into my mind that I'd never play again. And then when he said that, it kind of lit me up, and I was like, "Nah, get out your funk, and pray, talk to God." And I remember it was like less than a week later, I got a call from UMass. I'll never forget it. They called me and they were on the phone, basically saying, "Like, man, we saw your film because this is literally while I'm at home after the surgery. I had 2 surgeries, and literally while I'm at home, they put out my highlight tape for my junior season. So I don't even know if I'm gonna play again. But then my junior season highlight tape is going viral on the internet. So you
Wow.
calls like, we saw your tape about your injury. We're committed to let you come to our school and rehab for a year, even if you can't play. So I'm on the phone, like all these schools were calling, but nobody had offered yet. Once
Right.
I started hearing the conversation, I was like, hold on, it sounds like they're about to offer. Like, we want to give you a full ride scholarship to our university. We feel like you're a game changer. And I just started pouring out tears. And
Mm.
I didn't care if I got another offer. I knew I had one right there, to change my family's life. But I didn't know over the course of the next few months, I'd be having all the schools across the country traveling in to come see me and offer me full ride scholarships to that team.
Come on.
So I would say that was one of the moments. And here's the crazy thing about it. You fast forward from that injury to the NFL Combine. I went to the NFL Combine, and that was one of my biggest worries about the leg because I knew how bad it was, even though I had played on it. I had got released from physical therapy in high school
Hmm.
after like 4 weeks. They only wanted me to do a few exercises, and once I was able to do those, the insurance ran out, so I had to leave. So I really wasn't good. I was limping and everything, but I had a coach that took out time of his busy schedule every day to help me get through the process, which is another reason, a lot of these coaches in high school and stuff, they don't do it for the money. They do it because it's a purposeful deal. They want to be a part of impacting the next generation.
Yeah.
But fast forward to the combine, that was my worry, even though I had played on it for 4 years at Florida State. You go in, you got this long process of hours where the doctors are looking at you, pulling on everything. I get through clean, I think. I went through every single doctor and they said that my leg was good. But as I'm leaving out the door to be done for the day, when I thought I was gonna be there for like 8 hours plus, I'm like, all right, I got out easier than I thought. It's like a scene out of a movie. As I'm walking out the door, handing over all my papers, doctor comes out, he's like, yeah, where's Freddie Stevenson? I haven't seen him yet. I'm like, "Oh, man." This doctor brands me over, and he looks at whatever all the doctors wrote on the list. He starts looking at my leg, pulling on it and everything. He calls all the other doctors over there. He's like, "All you guys are wrong. This guy's gonna have bad arthritis in his leg. He's damaged goods." He's like, "I wouldn't waste a draft pick on him." And at this time, I'm a fullback, but I projected
Wow.
for, a fullback 4th round. And this day and age, it's like
Right.
first round. So he's like, I wouldn't waste a draft pick on him. So literally all these other doctors that had just said I was good, they started changing their report after this doctor comes in. Like, oh man, I'm not getting drafted. Some people they can look at that as a sad situation, but I look at the silver lining in that situation.
Come
When the
on
doctor
now.
said I'd never play again, 99% of people they would have been right. But when we talk about that promise that God has on
Come
your
on,
life,
man.
it don't matter how long it takes, it don't matter how it looks, that promise is gonna come to pass.
Yeah, yeah.
I think about, man, you know, a lot of people look at, oh, do you wish your NFL career played out? Like, no, because the most beautiful part of my story is I got through those darkest places. Now I got a relationship with God that I'd never had before. He's brought me out of some of the darkest places ever that if I would have made it in the league, I would have never been able to connect with him how I connected with him now.
Come on.
Now I'm in a position to impact millions in a lane that I never wanted to do it. So God's
Listen.
in weaknesses that I have and in the weakest moments, and He's flowing through me. He showed me that He's real. So when I go into any room, my confidence does not come from me. It
Come
comes
on
from
now.
God has delivered in each and every situation. So no, I don't have any regrets. I'm thankful for God for all the lessons along the way, all the lessons that have shaped me and molded me into the man that I am today.
Listen, man, when you were just talking, the scripture that comes up is in Psalm, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you're with me, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing, and I love hearing you testify that I don't regret what I've gone through because what I've gone through, I literally went through it with God, right? I wasn't alone, and God got me through the darkest times. I want you to speak to, because here's what I'm recognizing, Freddie. Every time I go into a high school or I travel in motivational speaking, every time I speak to teenagers, college students, I ask one question. And that one question I ask is, how many of you guys have a secret that that your parents know nothing about?
Mm.
And I'm still waiting on there to be one room where there's not 100% hands up. 100%. Every room. I've done this for 15 years. And not one room have I been in where there has not been 100% hands. Why do I point that out? Because what it started to tell me is that everybody looks like they're okay. Everybody pretends to be fine. And so what you're talking about with your leg, those doctors that looked at your leg and said, "Oh, he's good," to me represents everybody who looks at young people and look at their lives, look at their highlight tape, look at all the things that are going viral, things on Instagram, things that look like it's okay. But you got that one doctor, and I call it Dr. God, right? You got that one doc that says, this person, they're not moving in the right direction. They're not moving in the right direction, and they don't see that they're actually about to derail their lives. But I want to speak to the person. I want you to speak to the person who's suffering in silence, but you know, and I know that them revealing, them letting it out is actually the breakthrough that they need in order to go to the next level. Because what I hear you sharing right now is, I don't regret the story. I don't regret the path. I'm grateful that I had the promise all along, because some of them have lost sight of the promise. And maybe some of them have never even heard of the promises of God.
Mhm.
Speak to that athlete right now that's in college right now or in high school, and maybe they've lost sight, and maybe they are teetering the line for their
Okay.
future.
So I use the situation with my book. I wrote my book the Triumph, and that ultimately led to all this. I wrote it in 2019. Initially, it wasn't doing very well. Kind of local success. Florida State fans, Chicago Bears fans, is supporting it. Not that I ever cared about it blowing up. To
Mm-hmm.
be honest, I just initially wrote it to help our athletes that were struggling with that transition after the league. And then during that process, though, what I noticed, I talked about, you know, most of these dark moments in my life. But the thing about it was when I would talk about the book and market it in public, I was ashamed to talk about some of my low moments, being homeless, or some of the things that I did after I was done playing ball. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until 2021, I had a situation where, you know, the pandemic hit and, you know, I wasn't thinking that the book was gonna blow up or anything at that point. It's been 2 years. So a
Mm-hmm.
guy reaches out to me on Twitter. He's like, "Man, you don't know me. I don't know you. I don't follow sports. I came across your book on Amazon. I just lost my job. My family left me. So I was about to take my life. I'm
Mm.
reading your book and I'm pouring out tears. I have read through the entire book. You kept me from taking my life because you
Mm.
told the story. And he's like, keep telling your story, man. It's gonna impact so many people. I'm like, okay, this man I don't even know. And here I am. I'm ashamed of a lot of this stuff. I've written it down in the book, but I was
Mhm.
scared of, like high level executives because I was trying to speak at the time as well.
Yeah.
I wanted the book to get out to athletes, but I wanted to kind of hide it from certain people as well.
Right.
So from that moment, I was like, "No, I'm gonna be bold. God didn't allow me to go through this for no reason. He didn't bring me out of this for no reason. This is a testimony." So I started being bold about the things that I had experienced, the things I did, but ultimately what God had brought me out of. And then before I know it, my book is in Japan, it's in China, it's all across the
Praise God.
world. God used those dark places to glorify Him.
Oh,
So there
man.
may be some of you may have backslid, you may have lost focus, but God can bring you out of that and use it for His glory. So don't give up on yourself. Don't feel ashamed. I know people that are struggling with all different type of things, and they can smile with the best of them like they
That's
don't
right.
have problems. So if you're feeling like you're not at that level that God wants you at, and I'm not talking about financial success, I'm talking about spiritually, because
Spiritually.
none of this stuff matters at the end of the day. Where are you as far as the kingdom goes?
Come
That's what
on.
I'm talking about. Because that, like you said, God is the ultimate prize. So if
Ultimate.
you're not in alignment with God, put it on the
Name it
altar.
up.
That
It matters.
whatever you're dealing with, there's one of us, probably one of us on this in this conversation right now that's went through it.
That's right.
So I'm not the type of, I know a lot of people have been intimidated by the church because they feel like they get judged by people that did the
Yeah.
same thing that they do in the past. That's not me. I don't
Right.
judge. I mean, I remember the days when I did it, but
Come on
ultimately
now.
there's a standard that we have to live up to. This isn't okay, but I'm not gonna judge you either. I'm
That's
gonna help
right.
you. I want to be a part of helping you, leading you to God, mentoring you along the way, and helping you come up out of this evil so that you can walk into the light with God. Yeah, man. Ultimately, let these the youth know that what you're going through, it is in the end. Be bold in it and understand and trust God that He can get you out of it. And because I've been at the darkest moments. Some of you may be discouraged. I know when we look at people that are going through these darknesses, whether it's addiction, whatever the case
Yeah.
may be, some people just assume that every single day they make the decision to do it. It's not that
Mm.
simple. Addiction is
Right.
different. Some of them really wake up every day wanting to break that curse.
That's right. That's right.
And, so getting around people that know what you're going through, leaning on God every day and trusting Him, get fasting, praying, all of these things, because it all has to be in conjunction with that want. And then more and more you see that the process gets easier. The next thing you know, you built the lifestyle and you don't even want to go back to the old ways.
Mm.
So that would be my advice to the younger generation. It starts day by day, just taking one step. So that's it. Taking one step. You're not gonna be able to run the mile the first day, but
That's
take a
right.
step each day, and then before you know it, you'll be able to run marathons.
Man, Freddie, listen, I appreciate you so much, man, because the thing is that there are so many young people, and I meet with so many athletes who are struggling in silence, and they're siloed off to themselves because they compete at high levels, right? And they're competing at the highest level right now. When you're playing Division I athletics, you're competing in that top 1% already. So people talk about you in the top 1% when you go on to do the NFL or do professional sports, but you think about how big the sports realm is in college and in high school. When you get to that and you start talking about the Power Four conferences,
Mhm.
you already up there pretty much at the top 1%.
Yeah.
And so I tell people, how is that with God? Like, are you at the top 1%? Are you in pursuit of that? And then have you surrendered your heart? Have you surrendered your heart completely? Because a lot of what I find out when I work with athletes is you can go and do whatever therapy, psychology, learn all the terms you want. But until you recognize, and I say this to them, Freddie, when your breath leaves your body, your muscles don't. When your breath leaves your body, your brain is still in there. So I always ask them, so tell me what left. And they say, I never thought about that. I say, dang, that's my spirit. And I say, right. So what's the most important part of your body? We've got to start. And I tell people, we're not debating religion because every person on this planet is made up of spirit, soul, and body. So we need to start in sports having more conversations about spiritual development because that is the piece of them, like you said, Freddie, that's going to help you get over those darkest moments
Mhm.
when you're in the valley and there is a shadow of death. It ain't death, but it's a shadow that look like one. because God already has a promise. Freddie, I want to thank you, man. And I just want to, I want to know, how can people find the book and even the documentary? I heard you say there's a documentary. I want to know how people can find the documentary, and then how can they get in contact with you?
Yes, sir. Yes. But before I get into that, I want to kind of touch on what you said even more. Just ultimately doing this thing, we all strive to achieve greatness. And one thing that I've learned just through my journey with Christ is no matter how many touchdowns that I've scored, no matter how
Mhm.
much impact, how many championships I've been a part of, it never felt like enough. I always needed more.
Right.
And I just think back to the family members when I was growing up and they were struggling, and you never knew that they were struggling because they had God at the center of their life, and they just had a
Mm,
peace over them. Even though they didn't know where the next bill was going, if they were going to be able to pay the next bill or where the next bill was going to come from, that was a different peace. And now I understand that peace.
yeah.
It's a different level of peace when you know that you're in alignment with God's plan for your life. You can't lose. So there's a lot of people in this world, they're chasing that through material things or whatever that
Mhm.
the world is presenting to them. You'll never reach it until you make
Never
God
get
the
there.
center of your life. You'll never reach it. And once you get that peace that only God can give, none of that stuff becomes important anymore. You realize how blinded you've been your whole entire life. My social media is Struggle Made 105. You can get the book on Amazon, Trials of Triumph, and you can stream the documentary Trials of Triumph as well on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Tubi, and then the podcast is Trials of Triumph as well. I stream it on YouTube only, so you can find me on those platforms.
Listen, Freddie, man, I'm so honored, first of all, and definitely this can't be the last time, Freddie. Look, we got.
So good. And I gotta now that I know you in Clearwater, we gotta connect. I would love to connect.
Absolutely. We got to lock in, man. But I'm so grateful to the Lord for the opportunity, one, for you to share your testimony, but also for you to be a beacon of light out here for these athletes that are kind of growing up and maturing through this thing. And we know that only what they do for Christ is going to last, that we have brothers and sisters like you out here on the front lines, and that's willing to go out here and go to battle for the Lord and for the lives of this generation. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Y'all give it up for my man, Freddie Stevenson, Trials to Triumph. Make sure you go cop the book, get the book. Also check out the documentary on Tubi, on Amazon Prime, and then connect with him. Struggles Made, was it 105?
Yes, sir.
Struggle Made 105 on all the other social media platforms. But thank you so much, Freddie, for being with us. And I got to give you a go nose. I got to get a go nose because,
Sir.
hey, y'all know we work with Florida State, so go nose, baby. Go
I
nose
know.
all day, man.